Imagine holding power so extraordinary that it could either save a kingdom or burn it to ashes. Now imagine realizing that this same power is slowly consuming you from the inside. What would you choose? Control it or surrender to it? That question alone has shaped some of the greatest fantasy stories ever told. Because magic, in all its wonder, carries a darkness few dare to face. The kind of darkness that whispers instead of screams. The kind that tempts instead of threatens. The kind that feels like a gift until it becomes a curse. Magic doesn't corrupt instantly. It corrupts quietly. It waits for the moment your guard drops. It offers comfort in exchange for obedience. It promises power without consequences. But consequences always arrive, and in fantasy fiction, they arrive dramatically. Think of every hero who believed they were strong enough to control forbidden magic. They all started with good intentions. They all believed they were different. They all believed they could resist the pull. But darkness doesn't need a villain. It needs an opening. And magic is the perfect disguise for corruption. It looks beautiful. It feels powerful. It shines in colors the human eye cannot aim. And that is exactly why it's dangerous. Because the more beautiful the power, the harder it is to let go. So the story begins not with the fall, but with the temptation, a whisper, just one more spell, a thought, I deserve this power, a desire, I could fix everything. And slowly, the line between good and evil starts to blur. Heroes begin to resemble villains. Villains begin to sound logical. And magic becomes the silent judge of every choice. That's the emotional hook behind corruption. It feels justified. It feels earned. It feels necessary. And once the heart accepts that, the mind follows. Fantasy fiction uses magic as a mirror that reveals who we become when we're given too much power, too much freedom, too much desire, and too little restraint. We watch these stories because they remind us of ourselves. The fear of losing control, the thrill of limitless potential, the struggle to stay human when the world demands more. Magic is never just magic. It's temptation with a glowing surface. It's destruction wrapped in beauty. It's corruption disguised as destiny. And the question that hooks every reader is this: if I had that power, would I fall too? That's why we explore the dark side of magic. Because the truth is, the darkness isn't in the spell, it's in the choice. Let's walk deeper into this world where magic bends rules and morality bends with it. Picture a young sorcerer who begins with noble dreams. He wants to protect his village. He wants to heal his mother. He wants to rewrite his own painful past. So he seeks a spell book older than the kingdom itself. And he opens it, believing he can handle whatever he finds inside. But magic always demands something in return. At first, the cost seems small, a little exhaustion, a little dizziness, a little change in the color of his eyes. Nothing alarming, nothing dangerous, nothing he can't hide. But corruption doesn't begin with a disaster. It begins with comfort. It begins with success. It begins with a spell that works too perfectly. And suddenly, the sorcerer feels invincible. He believes he has earned the right to more power. So he opens the book again, and again, and again, until reading the book becomes breathing. The magic becomes identity. The spells become survival. This is how corruption quietly traps a character. Not by force, but by fulfillment. And this mirrors real life more than we realize, because every human faces tempting shortcuts. Every human faces the desire to control outcomes. Every human battles the seduction of just one more. In fantasy fiction, magic symbolizes those temptations, the promise of easy success, the illusion of control, the thrill of bending reality to our will. But reality always pushes back, just as magic pushes back on the characters who wield it. The more they use it, the more it changes them. Their decisions shift, their morals warp, their desires grow sharper, and the world around them begins to feel too small. They begin to justify the unjustifiable. They convince themselves that power makes them right. They believe others are simply too weak to understand. And that is where corruption fully blooms, not in the spell, but in the belief behind the spell. Fantasy fiction uses these moments to make us reflect on our own flaws, on our own ambitions, on our own willingness to bend rules when no one is watching. That's why the dark side of magic is more than storytelling. It's a reflection of the human heart, and the deeper we look, the more we see ourselves in the characters who fall. But here's the twist most readers never expect. Magic doesn't corrupt everyone the same way. Some fall slowly, some fall instantly, and some fall long before they ever cast their first spell. Because corruption doesn't start with magic, it starts with desire. The desire to be seen, the desire to be powerful, the desire to be unbreakable. And magic becomes the excuse to pursue that desire. So the real danger isn't the spell book, it's the person holding it. This flips the entire idea of corruption in fantasy fiction, because it means magic isn't the villain. The villain is the character's wounds. The villain is their fear. The villain is the emptiness inside them. And magic simply becomes the fuel for those inner shadows. This is the part where the story darkens. This is the moment the audience realizes they've been blaming the wrong thing. Magic is neutral. Characters are not. And that changes everything. Suddenly, the hero's fall becomes tragic instead of shocking. Suddenly, the villain's motives become understandable. Suddenly, the entire story shifts emotionally. Because corruption now feels inevitable, almost predictable, almost human. And that's the genius of great fantasy writing. It reveals that darkness isn't supernatural. Darkness is familiar. Darkness is personal. Darkness is rooted in pain we don't want to face. The magic only amplifies it. And when that amplification happens, characters fracture. Some become tyrants. Some become monsters. Some become cautionary tales. But a few become something even more complex. They become tragic heroes. Heroes who want to do good but cannot escape their own flaws. Heroes who battle themselves more than their enemies. Heroes who break our hearts because we understand them too well. That's the twist. Corruption isn't random. It's predictable. It's emotional. It's rooted in wounds we all recognize. And magic becomes the lens that magnifies those wounds. When readers see this, the story transforms. Corruption stops being fantasy. It becomes a mirror that forces us to face our own shadows. And that's what makes the dark side of magic unforgettable. So what does all this mean for us? It means fantasy fiction has been teaching us about ourselves all along. It means the dark side of magic is really the dark side of being human. It means every story about corruption is warning us about our own desires. But understanding corruption isn't the end. It's the beginning of transformation. Because awareness is the first step to resisting temptation. And stories give us that awareness safely. They let us explore danger without experiencing it. They let us witness downfall without suffering it. They let us learn without losing ourselves. That's why fantasy fiction matters more than people realize. It's not escape, it's education through imagination. And every corrupted mage, fallen hero, or power-blind villain carries a message worth remembering, a message worth studying, a message worth applying in real life. Because all of us face our own version of magic. Opportunities, influence, temptations, power, choices, and every choice has a consequence. Just like in the stories we love, but unlike fictional characters, we can choose differently. We can choose humility. We can choose restraint. We can choose responsibility. We can choose not to lose ourselves to the magic offered by life. That is where real power lies. Not in having magic, but in mastering ourselves. Not in controlling the world, but in controlling our temptations. And that's the real message hidden inside fantasy fiction. Corruption isn't destiny, it's a decision. Darkness isn't inevitable, it's avoidable. Power isn't poison, it's a test. And every test is an opportunity to rise. Fantasy stories show us the fall so we can choose the ascent. They show us the darkness so we can choose the light. They show us corruption so we can choose integrity. That's why these stories stay with us forever. They ignite thought. They spark reflection. They challenge our values. They shape our decisions. And they inspire us to be better. So the next time you see a character fall to dark magic, ask yourself, what would I do if this power were mine? If the answer scares you, that's good. It means you're aware. It means you're thinking. It means you're already resisting the corruption within. And that awareness is your greatest protection. So stay curious, stay reflective, and keep learning from the magic, both light and dark. You've journeyed through temptation, corruption, reflection, and redemption. You've seen how magic exposes the truth about human nature. You've witnessed how power reveals who we really are. And now it's time to take this understanding into your own world. Because every story is a teacher if we're willing to listen. Every character's fall is a warning. Every character's rise is inspiration. And every magical world is a lesson wrapped in imagination. The dark side of magic exists so we can recognize our own shadows. It shows us that power without responsibility is destruction. That ambition without limits is dangerous. That desire without discipline is disaster. And that the greatest battles are always internal. These truths aren't just for fantasy fans. They're for anyone who wants to understand themselves better. They're for anyone who wants to avoid their own downfall. They're for anyone who wants to rise above the temptations that life throws at them. And right now, that includes you. You didn't come here just to hear a story. You came to understand one, and you've done that brilliantly. But the story doesn't end here. The next chapter is yours to write, and the choices you make will define its tone. Will you choose power without purpose, or purpose before power? Will you let temptations control you, or will you master them? Will you walk the path of corruption, or the path of clarity? These questions shape every fantasy hero, and they shape you too. Fantasy fiction isn't just entertainment. It's a reminder of the responsibility that comes with influence. It's a reminder that great power, magical or not, requires wisdom. It's a reminder that corruption is a choice, not fate, and that integrity is the strongest magic of all. So carry that with you. Carry the lessons. Carry the awareness. Carry the strength to say no when the world tempts you with easy shortcuts. And keep seeking stories that challenge your mind and expand your soul. Because stories shape the future more than we realize. They shape our beliefs. They shape our values. They shape our decisions. And your decisions shape your destiny. So choose wisely. Choose courage. Choose clarity. Choose the light. Even when darkness looks easier, your story is powerful, even without magic. Your choices are spells of their own kind, and your future is the greatest world you'll ever build. So step into it with purpose and write a story worth remembering.